Apologize. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Talk Sports Show. Let's get right into it. Here are my fantasy best performance of the week. It's a duo, and one of them you may see in my stash candidates in a couple minutes. It is running back, Miami Dolphins running backs Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, as both of them went for 4 touchdowns yesterday, and Devon Achane rushed for over 200 yards. And I was shocked at how much usage Devon Achane got for the Dolphins yesterday. And I would say if you're going to pick up, if somehow Mostert or Achane is probably the more likely one to be available in your league, I would pick him up a beat. And I'm going to explain why here in a little bit. Just a little cliffhanger. Here are my waiver wire ads after week 3. Key is they have to be under 80% rostered. My first waiver wire ad is rookie quarterback. Second week in a row, he's on here. He was on here last week, and it seems like people are listening to what I have to say about C.J. Stroud. He needs to be added in more leagues. He's 11.2% rostered. Please, if you need quarterback help, if you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's in concussion protocol now, if somehow you had to pick up Zach Wilson, I would look on your waiver wire and see if C.J. Stroud is available on your waiver wire. He's starting to grow on me. I am an Ohio State fan. I knew Stroud could play really good. I didn't know he could be this good. But I think he needs to be more rostered. My number 2 waiver wire out of the week this week is Packers rookie tight end Luke Mustgrave. He is 13.3% rostered. If you need tight end help and you have a guy like maybe Kyle Pitts, or you have Kyle Pitts, Adam Trautman, I would say Kadon, but he's getting involved a little bit more in the offense for the Buccaneers. So, but if you have Pitts, Darren Waller, I would think about looking at your waiver wire and seeing if a Luke Mustgrave is available, which he probably is. If he is, especially if you play in tight end premium, I would think about going out and putting in a waiver claim for him and adding him off waivers to see if he will be how much more involved he gets in the offense. And I just got an update. The Joe Burrow will be a game time decision tonight. So if you have Joe Burrow, make plans to maybe have a backup plan. And I have somebody that may be out on your waiver wire that you may want to look at picking up. And that would be Baker Mayfield, 15% rostered, Buccaneers quarterback. And I will go more in depth on how I feel about him later. But he's been really good the first 2 weeks of the season for the Bucs. And in fantasy, he has not had a turnover yet. And that's the one thing that's held him back his whole career is turnovers. If he can stay turnover free, I think he could be a good fantasy quarterback. But he's got a tough matchup this week against the Eagles. But if you have Burrow and Burrow's out and you have a roster spot, I would think about going and picking up Baker Mayfield. My players to stash after week 3 of fantasy football. My number 1 player to stash after week 3 of fantasy football, and I think he's going to end up being CJ Stroud's favorite target, rookie wide receiver Tank Dell, 23.3% rostered in fantasy. If he's available in your league, I would recommend going out and adding him. And if you're feeling gutsy, I would think about putting him, in my mind, he's in flex consideration going forward. If he keeps producing, he'll move up into must start. But right now, he's in that flex consideration. So if you need a flex next week, I would think about adding and stashing Tank Dell. My number 2 stash of the week from week 3 is Colts rookie wide receiver Josh Downs. And with him, he is getting more and more involved every week in the Colts offense. I think he's going to pass Alec Pierce and be the number 2 receiver on the Colts behind Michael Pittman by or after their bye week. I would, if he's available, he's rostered in 3.2% of fantasy football leagues. I would go out and put a waiver claim in for him and stash him on your bench if you have an open spot. And the last guy I'm going to tell you to stash is a guy that I talked about a few minutes ago along with his teammate. So I talked about the duo of Raheem Mostert and this guy, Devon Achane. Devon Achane's only 16.1% rostered. And I know what people are going to say. Jeff Wilson is due back in 1 more week. Well, I've got news for you. I think Jeff Wilson's going to become expendable after what the Dolphins saw out of Devon Achane this past week against Denver. I think Achane's going to be the RB2 in Miami. And if you're desperate at running back because you had Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry, well, Nick Chubb's out for the season, but Derrick Henry, who's losing touches to Tajay Spears, who I didn't put on this list, but he's another guy I would go out and stash. Because I think he's got a good chance as well of maybe taking over that Tennessee backfield. And now here's my stat prediction for Baker Mayfield tonight against the Eagles. My stat projection for Baker Mayfield tonight against Philadelphia: over 300 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. 2 to Mike Evans, 1 to Chris Godwin, and 1 to Cade Otton. And now Here's why I think the Buccaneers can beat the Philadelphia Eagles. One, our defensive line, it's gonna be a battle in the defensive lines. And I think the Buccaneers, I like the Eagles defensive line. Don't get me wrong. But I think the Buccaneers have just as good of a D line as Philly. And I think if we can control the line of scrimmage and keep Philly from running the ball, because we have one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So I think that the Buccaneers, if they can limit the number of, let's say, if they can keep Philly under 110 yards rushing, I think they win. Here are my college football rankings after week number 4. Starting off at number 25, I have Syracuse. Syracuse is making their debut in my top 25 rankings. And I do this based on, I don't do it like real life, where you have the coaches poll. I do it based on how the teams play every week. So if you win, you're in my top 25. If you lose, the key is if you lose, you either get punished and move down, or if you lose by more than 10, you get bumped out of my rankings. So back to Syracuse. They're in here. They're 4-0 to start the year. I've been super impressed with Syracuse. When everybody said, oh, Dino Babers is on the hot seat, he's not going to make it through the season and all that. At number 24, I have Ole Miss. And yes, I punished them for only losing by 10 to Alabama. I think Ole Miss can still move up in my rankings. They did not play that bad. I rewatched their game against Alabama the other day, and there was some good plays. There was some high points in the game. There was some low points. But I think that they have a chance to move up in my rankings again. At number 23, I have Maryland. Maryland's another undefeated team. And I told you when I did my Big Ten standings before my Big Ten power rankings before week 1, watch out for Maryland. Because I thought Maryland was going to be good. And so far they are. They're undefeated. Take into account, they really haven't played. I mean, they played Michigan State last week, but that's still not. Michigan State's on the downturn. And you'll see where I have them in my Big Ten rankings later on in the show. Another new team in my rankings is Missouri. After upsetting Kansas State prior the week before last week in week 3, they beat Memphis this week, and I was very low on Missouri, and I was wrong on Missouri. Was one of the teams I was wrong on. I did not expect them to be undefeated going into week 5. But they are undefeated. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see how good they actually are. At number 21 is another new team on my rankings. University of South Florida. And non-biased, I'm a big-time USF fan. And you will see my other favorite team in these rankings too later on. Again, non-biased. This is based on how they played. USF through 4 games has played really well, but they have a tough test this week against 1-2 Navy. And Navy's no slouch. If they beat Navy, I may have to move them up a few spots. At number 20, I have Washington State. Yes, they were inside my top 15 last week. But as you see, I have moved them down because they only beat Oregon State, who is now fallen. You'll see at the end of this, is not in my top 25. So that is why Washington State is here at number 20. They did play good. That was a tight, close game against Oregon State. But I think if they keep winning, that they can move back up. At number 19 in my rankings, I have Duke. They've played really good this year. And I've been surprised at how good they've actually played. Take into account, they're undefeated, 4-0 now. They have Notre Dame this week. Big game. Notre Dame's another team you will see in a few minutes in my rankings. I did punish them for losing to Ohio State. At number 18, I have Oklahoma. And the reason Oklahoma's at 18 is because they played Cincinnati. And Cincinnati choked. Cincinnati should have beat Oklahoma. But Oklahoma's defense stepped up. And that's a calling card of their coach, Brett Venables, is defense. That is why Oklahoma's at 18. At number 17, I have Miami of Ohio. Goddard and Gibbs for Jacobs. Yes, but see if you can get another piece in that trade. See if you can get another tight end, another tight end in the trade along with Josh Jacobs. Back to the rankings. So number 17 is Miami of Ohio. Yes, I know what everybody's going to say. Why is Miami in here? They shouldn't be ranked at all. But they are. Oh, then you're good. Yeah, I would do that trade. I would do that Goddard and Jahmyr Gibbs for Josh Jacobs. I would do that trade in a heartbeat. Miami of Ohio, as a team, I've been really surprised with this year. And that is why they're in my rankings. They played really well to start the season. You're welcome. At number 16, I have North Carolina. North Carolina is a team I really haven't been that inspired by, but yet they're still undefeated, which is why they were 13. They were in this range last week. They moved down one spot from 15 to 16. And if they play better than they were, they can move back up. At number 15, I have Florida State. And the reason Florida State's here, and most people are going to be like, why is Florida State not in your top 10 anymore? Because they played Clemson, and I know they were 2.5-point favorites, but Clemson is on the downswing and kind of rebuilding, and they should have beat the brakes off of Clemson. And that is why Florida State, I punished them and moved them to 15. At number 14, I have Tennessee. This is a prove-it week for Tennessee. They play South Carolina. They should beat South Carolina very handedly this week. Should. If they do, they will move back inside my top 10. At number 13, I have Louisville. And Louisville is also undefeated. Like another ACC. Like most of the ACC teams I have in my rankings. And Louisville's actually played really good this year with Jack Plummer, which I've been surprised. At number 12, I have LSU. LSU can move inside my top 10 if they keep winning. I just haven't had the chance to move them up due to the fact that they've been blowing out teams. At number 11, I have Alabama. Yes, people, I know what your reaction is. Why is Bama at 11 and not in front of your teams that are inside at 10 and then inside your top 10? The one issue I have with Bama is quarterback. They don't have a QB. If they had a QB, I wouldn't have an issue or problem with putting him in my top 10. But they don't. Jalen Milroe's been inefficient. Tyler Buckner's absolute garbage. Ty Simpson's a freshman. And I just looked at the roster the other day. They have 2 other freshmen on their roster that they haven't even played yet. And Eli Holstein and Dylan Lagway. Why, Saban, why aren't you playing those? One of them's a 4-star. Why aren't you playing them instead of using Jalen Milroe, Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson? See what you have in those other 2 freshman quarterbacks. At number 10, I have Notre Dame. Last week, they were at number 6. They got punished. Not big time, but they did get punished for losing to Ohio State, even though it was a close game. And it was a really good game, too. But if Notre Dame beats Duke this week, they will move back inside my top 7. At number 9, I have Oregon. I could have moved Oregon up, but there was teams in front of them that, other than the team that's at number 6, that have played better than they have. At number 8, I have Utah. Yes, I know what everybody's going to say. Why is Utah at 8? And why did they not get punished for only winning by a touchdown? There is stuff I take into account. For example, Utah, they've been playing without their starting quarterback for the first 4 games of the year, and somehow they're undefeated. Nate Johnson is a freshman, and it's an understatement if I said he's gonna be good. He just needs more time. But I can't punish Utah for not having their starting quarterback. At number 7 is Washington. Washington's another team that's played really good. I like how Washington's played. They're undefeated. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for a big shocker. At number 6 in my rankings is Georgia. I know I had them at number 1 last week, but they just don't look like that the back-to-back national champions. They don't. They look like a team that's going to lose at least 1 game this year, maybe 2. Outside chance, maybe 3 games, because they have a new quarterback at Carson Beck, and they have a lot of turnover from last year to this year. They've lost a lot of guys in the last 2 seasons. A lot of guys that went to the NFL. Don't get me wrong, Kirby Smart is a great coach, but he's also a good recruiter. But the way Georgia can get back inside the top 5 and maybe the top 4 is if they win and they do it convincingly. At number 5 is Penn State. Penn State is the real deal. They shut out Iowa last week, 31-0. Yes, I know what you're going to say. Iowa's still Iowa. They're still bad. Not in my opinion. I think Iowa's an improved team that will win games. But it's just they ran into the buzzsaw that is Penn State. And Penn State is good. They're the real deal. At number 4, another team that I punished, even though they won, USC. And this one is different. It's their defense. I'm punishing them because their defense gives up points and doesn't get stops. You can't. And I'm sorry, but they're not going to sniff. They won't sniff the college football playoff if their defense can't get better and step up. If their defense gets better and steps up, then they might have a chance to make the playoff. But till that happens, they're gonna be dipsy-doodling inside between 4 and 5 in my rankings. And there's a chance they could fall even further. If somebody like Colorado beats them this week, I might move USC down. Not out of my rankings, but they might be punished and move outside the top 10. At number 3, Michigan. Yes, I know what y'all are thinking. Why is Michigan still behind Ohio State? One reason. It's nothing to do with my hatred towards them. Harbaugh's a great coach. It's just they need to figure out other ways to win. Because when you get to the rest of their slate, like their October games are cakewalks. November's when they start playing good teams in the Big Ten. And when that happens, they're going to have to figure out, because those teams in the Big Ten that they're going to play in November probably have good defense. And if you run into a defense that knows how to stop the run, you're going to have to figure out, how are we going to win this game? Because we can't run the ball 25 to 30 times during the game, because the defense is just going to the other team's defense is just going to stop us for no gain, a loss, or maybe turnover. So you're going to have to figure out different ways to win the game. And that's why Michigan, I feel like, may fall. They may lose. They're going to lose at least 1 game. They might lose 2. At number 2, I have Texas. And I've kept them here. They made a statement against Baylor last week. Everybody had them on upset alert because they said Baylor was desperate and Baylor had nothing to lose by beating Texas. And Texas said, you're not going to upset us. We're not getting punished in Alec's top 25 rankings for losing. Texas, bravo, Texas. You made a statement. You are number 2 on my rankings for the second week in a row. And if you keep playing like you played, you're going to stay at number 2. And drumroll, please. At number 1 in my rankings is Ohio State. They made a statement at Notre Dame last week that even though our offense struggled, we can play lockdown, shutdown defense. And still win. And here's the teams that just missed out on my rankings. Just missing out this week on my rankings is UCLA and Kansas. And falling out of my rankings is Oregon State and Florida. Florida, it's because they were favored by a large margin against Charlotte. And they only won by, I believe it was 10, which is embarrassing. Now we're going to preview the South Florida Navy football game. And as I've said, this is a big game in the American Conference for USF. If they win this game, they solidify themselves as a top 5 team in the American Athletic Conference this year. Now, Kent State, here's just a small preview of Kent State, Miami of Ohio. I think Miami of Ohio wins this game. And to all my YouTube subscribers, not only am I offering you a chance to be in a subscriber-only fantasy football league, but I've also started up a Discord server for my YouTube channel for the Talk Sports community. Link to both the fantasy football league and the Discord is in the comments below, in the description below of this video. Please at least consider joining the Discord, because that is where you will get notification. You will get first look at the streaming schedule for YouTube for the Talk Sports Show with me, Alec Pecino. You will get in the Discord server. I've already put the link to the Fantasy Football League in there. So once you join the Discord, you can click on the link to the Fantasy Football League and join that. And that will either be starting this coming week, if we can get it filled up, or it'll be starting in 2024. And now here's my updated Heisman list after week 4. At number 5 on my Heisman list is a guy that he leads the country in rushing yards for quarterbacks. USF QB Byrum. Keep your eyes on him. He, in my opinion, he's a dark horse for Heisman. That is why I have him at number 5. At number 4 in my Heisman list is Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. And I had him higher than this last week, but he did not have a good game against Notre Dame. They knew how to cover him. But I think he can turn it around after their bye week when they get into Big Ten play. At number 3 in my Heisman list is Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman, who had a relatively decent game against Ohio State's defense, over 100 yards passing. But I think if he has a good game against Duke, he can move up to 1 or 2 on my list for the Heisman. Speaking of number 2 on my Heisman list is quarterback Cameron Ward from Washington State. One word, this kid has a cannon. He has a really good arm. And at number 1 on my Heisman list for week 4, Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Joe Milton has a big prove-it game this weekend against South Carolina. If he has a good game and he has this Heisman moment, he can solidify himself a spot permanently on my Heisman list. Now, here's players to watch for week 5 of college football. You get 3 players. I'm going to say his name again. I just said it talking about the Heisman list. At the number 3 guy to watch in week 5 of college football, USF quarterback, redshirt freshman, Byrum. This kid is for real. I think USF has found their QB. The number 2 guy to watch in week 5 of college football is Tennessee QB Joe Milton, because I think he's going to have a good game this week. And another guy I talked about in my Heisman list, the number 1 guy to watch in college football this week for week 5 is Washington State QB Cameron Ward. I like your side of the trade, getting Bijan, George Pickens, and Calvin Ridley. I think you won that trade. Big time. And just a little programming, tonight at 6:30, I will be doing a pregame live stream for the Buccaneers and Eagles game. And then at 7:15, I will be doing full play-by-play for the Buccaneers Eagles Monday night football game. Here are my Big Ten power rankings after week 4. At number 14, they didn't move at all. Michigan State. I told you, I don't think they were going to move up or down. I think they're going to stay right at 14 every week. I'll give you a little teaser. I do have them in my college football stream on Thursday for maybe an upset. You'll have to wait and see. At number 13, I have Northwestern. I can't move them up until I see them win another game. I think Northwestern can outdo the one total I had them at, which was 2, which they're at 2 wins right now. I think they can win more than 2 games somehow. At number 12, I've got Indiana. I don't know what to think of Indiana. They're hit or miss. 1 week they're good, 1 week they're bad. Can they be more consistent? If they can move back up inside the top 10 of my Big Ten rankings. At number 11, I have Illinois. Illinois is another team that is hit or miss. They're good 1 week, they're bad next week. Can they be more consistent? If they can. And that's a word you're going to keep hearing me say in these rankings. If they can be more consistent, they can move up. At number 10, I have Purdue. Purdue is another team I like. But again, can they be consistent? Can they be consistent on offense and defense? If they can, then I don't have an issue moving them up in the Big Ten rankings. At number 9, correction, I have Nebraska. Nebraska. Let's talk. I thought you were going to be better in your first year under Matt Rule. You've won 2 games. That is why you're at number 9. But again, consistency. Can you be consistent? If you can be consistent, then I can move you up. At number 8 is Iowa. I had them inside my top 5 last week, but I moved them down because they got throttled by Penn State. At number 7 is Rutgers. I have been really surprised with Rutgers this year so far. Rutgers is good 1 week, they're bad next week. They were 3-0 to start the year, and then they just lost to Michigan. And that is why they're at number 7. Wisconsin's at 6, and they've been very disappointing to me. I thought they were going to be better than this and win more games. I really thought that. I guess not. At number 5, I've got Minnesota. The Gophers. PJ Fleck, row the boat. I like what they're doing. Michigan fans. What do I have to say? I have a lot, but I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice to y'all. Because some of y'all are good Michigan fans. You don't rub it in when you beat Ohio State the last 2 years. All I'm going to say is, in order for y'all to move up in the rankings, you need to play somebody that's good in the Big Ten. When you beat Penn State, when you beat Maryland, maybe I will move you up inside the top 3 of the Big Ten rankings. But till then, I can't do that. At number 3, I've got Penn State. And I just talked about them in my top 25. I told you, they are the real deal 1.0. Because there's a team in front of them that's also, I think, the real deal, even though they played Michigan State last week. I like Penn State's offense, and I like their defense. At number 2, I have Maryland. Michael Locksley. He might be a dark horse for Big Ten Coach of the Year. I love how Maryland is playing this year. And at number 1 is Ohio State. The main reason they're at number 1 is because of their defense. Their defense stepped up against Notre Dame on Saturday. They couldn't, their offense was struggling and looking sluggish. But once they got their defense going, they got a lot of pressure on Hartman. I don't think they targeted Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame threw one pass at Denzel Burke, who is the best DB in the Big Ten. Which I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. Why? You throw a pass at Denzel Burke. You're either asking for it to be incomplete or you're asking for it to be intercepted. Now, here are my American Athletic Conference rankings after week 4. At number 14, I've got East Carolina. They finally won a game. Hooray! But they're still number 14 in my rankings. At number 13 in my rankings is North Texas. And again, I'm not impressed with them. Temple is at number 12. I like Temple, but I don't know if they're any good. At number 11 is Rice. No explanation needed. They got stomped by USF. And that is why they got moved down in my rankings. Number 10, Tulsa. I don't know what the status of Braylon Braxton is, but if he's going to be out the rest of the season, I don't think Tulsa's winning any more games. At number 9 is Charlotte. They're another team that has been underwhelming this year. At number 8, FAU. I like the trajectory FAU is on. I think they can have a good rest of the season. At number 7 is UTSA. They're a team that I thought was going to be a lot better in their first year in the American. They do have time to turn it around, but I'm afraid if they lose 1 or 2 more games, that their season might be over. And they don't have quarterback. Right now, they don't have their best player, which is quarterback Frank Harris. At number 6, I've got UAB. I have been shocked at how well UAB's played, even if they've lost 3 games. Trent Dilfer's going to be a good head coach. Just give him time. Another team I've been shocked with is Navy. Navy surprised me to the point where if they beat USF this week, I could move them up in these American Athletic Conference rankings. And to say that is an understatement, of the century. At number 4, I have Tulane. They just got their QB, Michael Pratt, back last week, which is a dangerous sight to the rest of the American Athletic Conference. I would be scared if I'm the teams that are in the top 3 of my rankings right now. At number 3, I've got Memphis. I love Memphis. I think they're going to be really good in the American this year. At number 2, I've got SMU, who was just in a high-scoring game with TCU over the weekend. And I hope you watched my show last Thursday when I told you to take the over in the SMU TCU game. If you did, you can thank me for telling you to do that, because you probably won a little bit of cash. And my number 1 team in the American Athletic Conference after week 4 is USF. I punished them after week 3 because they lost to Alabama, even though it was only by 10. But they looked a lot better last week, even though it was against Rice. I think if they keep playing the way they're playing, they will be fine. And ladies and gentlemen, now is the portion of the show where I'm an open book Q&A. Ask me some questions. I will keep on talking. My takeaways from college football week 4 are as follows. Ohio State, I know people are going to say they're not a championship contender, but I feel like they are with their defense they have. If they play really good defense and their offense is struggling, I think that they can win a lot of games on defense. My number 2 takeaway from college football this week is, I've said this twice already, but Penn State is no joke. To the person that just joined, to my loyal YouTube viewer that just joined, ask me a question in the comment section, and I will gladly answer it. But back to my takeaway. It is that Penn State isn't to be taken as a joke like they have been the last 2 years. They are for real. Projected to win by 4 or 5 points. Safer start tonight between Kiner and Williams. Ooh. That's a tough one. They're playing the Bengals. I would go Puka, because I think they're going to have to throw the ball. I would go Puka because they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and the Bengals are good at stopping the run. And Liam, if you haven't heard, I have a Discord server. The link to the Discord is in the description of this video. And if you join there, you will get your questions answered right away. And also, I am starting up a fantasy football league, Liam. The link to that is also in the description. Feel free to join that. Anybody else have questions? I will continue. I think James Franklin's got Penn State playing really good this year. And I like Drew Allen. I know I'm a Buckeye fan, but I like Drew Allen more than I like Kyle McCord. Of course, you're welcome. I think Drew Allen's another guy that's a dark horse for the Heisman. And then the last one is, like I said when I was doing my college football rankings, USC, this is a hot take. USC will not sniff will not get anywhere near the college football playoff without fixing their defense. And I've got a solution, USC. You need to fire your defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. He has not proven that he can be a good defensive coordinator in the NFL. If he did prove that he could be a good offensive coordinator in the NFL, then I would be fine with you keeping him. But he's holding your defense back, and you won't be able to make the college football playoff with him as your defensive coordinator. Now to a couple NFL hot takeaways from week 3 so far. The Dolphins, I know I give the Dolphins a lot of slack, but Tua may be a dark horse for MVP. And I think there's a shot that Tyreek Hill does get over 2,000 yards receiving. And there's something else I have to get off my chest. As you see, I'm a Buccaneers fan. I don't know what was wrong with me in the offseason when I said, but I dogged on the Buccaneers for signing Baker Mayfield. And I want to apologize personally to the Buccaneers for signing for my outlandish take that I had in the preseason, before the preseason started, when I did my projection for the Buccaneers. And I said Baker Mayfield would only last 8 weeks and then they would go to Kyle Trask. I want to take that back. I think Baker can lead the Buccaneers to the playoffs. And I think Baker could be, he's in the same situation Geno Smith was in with Seattle. I think if Baker has a good rest of the season, I think the Buccaneers give him like a 3-year deal with a reasonable amount of money guaranteed. And they bridge the gap and they draft somebody later in the draft, or they stick with Trask as the backup to learn behind Baker. And they do re-sign Mike Evans too. But I just want to say, I want to apologize to everybody when I said that the Buccaneers should have gave Kyle Trask an opportunity to be the starter. They did, but I think everybody knew that Baker was going to be the starter week 1, even if we didn't like it. So that's my little public service announcement. Apology to the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. I am sorry, Baker, for dogging on you. I think that Baker could win. If the Buccaneers offense keeps up what they're doing, I think Baker could win Offensive Player of the Year. That's a dark horse take, and that's coming from an NFL fan and a non-biased Buccaneer fan. My other takeaway is that the Broncos, I think it's time to move on from Vic Fangio. Your defense is terrible. You gave up 70 points to the Dolphins and 4 touchdowns to Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, which is embarrassing. I'm sorry, but that's not okay. You can't give up that many touchdowns. And what made it worse is you gave up 200 yards rushing to Devon Achane. It would have been fine if it was under 100 yards rushing. But you gave up over 200 yards rushing to him and 50 yards receiving to Devon Achane. Which, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't see my players to stash earlier for fantasy football after week 3, Devon Achane was one of the players I said to stash. And I could keep going on, but I will be back at 6:30 for the pregame for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Philadelphia Eagles game. Please come and join that live stream, and I will also answer questions in that live stream for fantasy football week 4 and beyond. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you guys at 6:30.